going on, everybody? Welcome to the patch notes for March 21st, 2023 for Marvel Snap. Ladies and gentlemen and people, I have a dog on my feet. She's sleeping, so we're going to be very lucky this time. All right, first, I'm only really going to talk about the balance updates that happened. A lot of this stuff we already knew was going to happen. All this stuff was already outlined in their roadmap, in their Discord post. I think they had a Reddit post about this too. So all these things we already knew about. These card drops, already knew about. Audio for Thanos, thank God. Nimrod, cool. These other two, whatever. Visual effects for Thanos and VFX, along with all the Infinity Stones. Yes, it was really annoying that Galactus had so many cool effects and graphics and everything, and you had Thanos as the only other permanent tier 5 card that had nothing. So great. So a lot of the balance changes in the card updates are aimed towards Thanos decks and Shuri decks. Those have been massive problems. With Thanos, it's not even Thanos, it's the stones that are the big problem. For me, the biggest problem was the Space Stone, and they did change the Space Stone. So Space Stone, let's just get to it. But those are the two decks that are being targeted right now. All right, Thanos. Let's pull it up. Fuck it. All right, Thanos went from a 6'11 to a 6'10. Still a buff compared to where he was before, which was a 6'8. So now if you don't get all the stones out, which most of the time you won't, he's still a 6'10, still decent enough card. All right, and then if you have all the cards out, then he's going to be on par with Infinite. Him being more powerful than Infinite, kind of a pain. So I think this is still good. It's a buff. It's not as big of a nerf as some people may think. Still better than before. Space Stone. Now, instead of moving a card from this location, you can move a card to this location. So it changes it to a 1-card cloak. Cloak, you play cloak at a location. Next turn, you can move cards to cloak's location. So this is going to do that. Developer comment kind of explains what my problems were, what a lot of people's problems were with this card, where this is among the strongest stones in Thanos' decks due to its ability to create bonus lockjaw triggers and disguise where strong cards might move. Completely agree. This change reduces the efficiency by the efficacy with lockjaw by removing the incentive to play Space Stone itself for a lockjaw trigger, flattening the number of bonus trigger opportunities for lockjaw. And restricting the strategic options for late game movement. We expect this to reduce the tactical flexibility of Thanos decks and make them more fun to play against. It was abusive, where you can play Lockjaw on turn 3, and then if you had Quinjet out, you can play old Quinjet, because there's a new Quinjet now. Old Quinjet, you can play Lockjaw on turn 3 and 3 stones, one of them being the Space Stone, and have 6-cost cards come up, strong cards, and be able to move them next turn to Sanctum Sanctorum, to where Storm already flooded the location, to where else? Pays that you used, Ebony Maw, I've seen, not Big House, whatever the card ability is where you can't play 4-cost, 5-cost, or 6-cost cards there, you can move them there too. And you'd be able to do anything, move any card there. It made it very unfun and made it very hard to predict. It was one of the strongest aspects to the Thanos deck. So that changed. Fantastic. Quinjet now reduces minimum cost to 1, which it should have really from the beginning. Cost reduction is powerful, and Quinjet was one of the very few cards reducing multiple cards' energy to 0. While they've enjoyed this interaction in some cases, such as the Hood's Demon, ultimately it creates both an ongoing risk of future design as well as fueling the dominant Thanos decks of today. This change should be a meaningful net reduction in the strength to Thanos' deck across the board. I saw some rumors and speculation that the changes that were going to be made to the stones for Thanos decks were increase the cost to 2, so if you have Quinjet out, it costs 1. But the problem is, even at cost 1, the Thanos deck is still pretty strong. Another thing was to get rid of card draw. And that is dumb because you have so many cards in your deck. You need the card draw. So I think this was the best way to handle it, The other card that reduces things to a minimum of 1 is Sarah. Those all cards in your hand. So the fact that Quinjet now is a minimum of 1, aside from the stones, it's going to slightly nerf Maria Hill, but it still won't nerf Coulson. It most likely won't nerf Cable, Nick Fury, whatever. Other cards, most of the time, Agent 13. Those zero-cost cards, especially in a Thanos deck where you're guaranteed 6 zero-cost cards, it's abusive. Again, going back to what I said before, on turn 3, playing Lockjaw and 3 stones at the same time, it's crazy. It's wrong, and so this is much needed. A fantastic change. Red Skull. Now we're going on to Shuri decks. Just quickly about the Thanos decks too. Even if you didn't have Quinjet out, Thanos was still a very strong deck to go against. It wasn't completely overpowered, but it was still very good. Most of it was the Space Stones. So this change to Quinjet, I think, is definitely going to hurt Thanos's super overpoweredness. But I think Thanos is still going to be pretty powerful. The hard thing is just what the Space Stone is going to do. I think this change to Space Stone is the only change so far that really, really hurts the Thanos deck. My opinion. I don't know what you guys think. Let me know. Red Skull. Red Skull, it was a 5/15, where enemy cards at this location have +2 power, to now it's a 5/13, where enemy cards get +1 power. The change is singularly aimed to reducing the strength of combining Red Skull, Shuri, and Taskmaster. Outside of those, the change is mostly a buff to the base usage, where of Red Skull giving you a 9 or 10 power at crowded locations rather than a 7 or 9. Just an easy example to show this off. If you have Red Skull and they have 4 rocks, currently, or previously, it was your 15 strength versus their 8 strength, which is a 7-point difference. Now it's going to be a 13 strength versus their 4 strength, which is a 9-point difference. He is still going to be very strong, a 5/13, if you pair him up with 0. If you put him at a location, you still use Taskmaster. Having a 5/13 there is fantastic. Pairing him up with Shuri still is a 5/26, and Taskmaster will now be still a 5/26. And in fact, it's going to hurt more because you won't have that extra power buff to combo against there. Like the +2 strength if you want to try to stack against it. So it's a buff in all of the cases, but it's going to make going against the Shuri Taskmaster a little bit easier. It's easier to overcome 26 strength than it is 30. But it didn't super kill the deck. But hopefully this is going to show a lot less of it. Next change is going from She-Hulk, a 6'10", to a 6'9", which is nice. She-Hulk is a key component to the strongest Shuri decks, while it sees widespread play in various decks thanks to its strength alongside Sunspot, Wave, and Moon Girl. We mostly think that's cool, but that she's more powerful than she needs to be for these combos. In addition, we want to encourage playing actively to locations rather than holding cards for an explosive turn 6, so we're continuing to weaken a few of the best cards for the latter. I always thought a 6'10" She-Hulk was a little bit too strong for it, especially since you're holding it for it, and she worked so well with Wave, she worked so well with Sunspot. I think was too powerful before. I still think she's really good, but just seeing the 9 power is, it's going to hurt. Definitely going to hurt. But again, I still think from how she is, it's still going to be a very widely played card. Arrow. Oh, this is quite a bit. Arrow was a 5/7 to move all enemy cards placed at this location, or move all enemy cards to this location that were played this turn. Now she's a 5/8, move the last enemy card played this turn to this location. So she's stronger in power, and she's only going to move the last card played. So if you're going against the Shuri Red Skull Taskmaster deck, unless they have a 0 or 1 cost card on turn 6 to play after Taskmaster, you could still really hurt their deck like that. You can mess up their play and do a little work with it. If you're going against a Galactus deck and they have to play Galactus on turn 6, this change isn't going to hurt. It's going to help because you're going to have more power. So against decks that have that big 1 card play on turn 6, still works just fine. But going back to the Shuri decks or the things where it's the Moon Girl and they play multiple She-Hulks, that's the one that's going to be, it's going to be hurting quite a bit. The strength of Arrow. So half the time I don't think it's going to matter. The other half of the time I think it will definitely have a negative impact on what it is. Hopefully people won't catch on to this as fast and they will just start to play cards that don't really matter what order they're being played in. And you'll be able to take that last card. Part of me thinks that instead of the last card played this turn, it should be one of the cards played this turn and then just randomly chooses one of the cards played. So this way it helps to take out a little bit of the preparation strategy. Could hurt you, could not hurt you, I don't know. But I think going against Arrow decks, it was so frustrating. When I'm playing Galactus or doing any 1-turn thing on turn 6, it's not going to affect it. But I think for the overall health of the game, this is kind of needed. All right. Speaking of things that are kind of needed, now talk about Mystique, Absorbing Man, and Taskmaster. If you've gone against the Shuri deck where you destroy the Red Skull, the 30 power Red Skull, before they play Taskmaster, and then their Taskmaster takes the power from Red Skull, even though Red Skull isn't there anymore, how is that possible? It doesn't make any sense. It makes you think that it's a bug, which they address how this often gets reported as a bug, and they want to make this change to cleanly matches players' intuition when they see these cards for the first time. Because if you play Taskmaster and there's nothing there, how is this getting that strength? A good example is, let's just say I play Zabu on turn 2. They have priority. They play Rogue to take my Zabu's power, but I played Mystique to get to copy Zabu's ability. The last card I played was Zabu. He had an ongoing ability, but I can't take it anymore because the ability isn't there. But if Zabu was destroyed somehow, I can still take the power from him even though he's not in play. He still has his power. So it didn't make any sense. And it wasn't fair for that. Because if you're able to copy the power of something that's destroyed, why couldn't I copy the ongoing ability if it was taken away? I understand the difference because they don't have it anymore. But it kind of is like the same feeling. So this is much needed. Very needed. I think that's a good change. It's not going to affect me that much. I don't think it affects Mystique or Absorbing Man too much. It's really the Taskmaster that was, I think, the much bigger problem itself. However, with Negasonic Teenage Warhead coming out, could you imagine playing Negasonic Teenage Warhead? Then they're playing a card to destroy Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Both of those are gone. And then Absorbing Man still takes Negasonic's ability at a different location. It might be a little bit much. Might be much. Anyway. All right. Now on to the weird changes. So Morbius' power no longer updates in hand or in deck, only at the location. So Morbius, when you discard a card, he gets +2 power for every card that was discarded. If you pulled him on turn 4, turn 5, and you've discarded a bunch of cards, you've discarded like 6 cards by then he'll be 12 power, right? Now he has to be in the field, because when you draw him, he'll always be 0 power. And in your hand, he'll be 0 power all the way up until he gets played. I get it. He's cheap. They say that they've previously adjusted Morbius's power to when he wasn't in play, specifically by calculating his future power. I don't know anything about the way Morbius was before current Morbius. I didn't play him. I don't know when that change even happened. So, like, I get it. Having a very strong Morbius when you're just discarding cards and he's not there can sometimes feel a little bit wrong, but was it really needed? I don't know. We'll see how it turns out. Definitely a nerf. Not as big of a nerf as Null. Null will only update when his, as long as he's in your hand, but he won't update in your deck anymore. This change makes me feel like Null should be a 5 power card instead of a 6 power card. Or sorry, a 5 cost card instead of a 6 cost card. Because you are going, and if you don't have him in your opening hand, and you play Yondu, or your opponent you both play Yondu, right? And you both get rid of a Magneto. Then your Null in your deck, which you haven't drawn yet, is 24 power. That's crazy. That's awesome. And that's crazy. That's definitely worth 6 cost. If that happens on turn 1 and 24 power is gone and Null doesn't get updated, only updated while he's in your hand, that's a 5 cost card. Unless you're guaranteed to get him in your opening hand. If he's in your opening hand and this kind of stuff happens, then he's totally a 6 cost card. But the fact that it's not guaranteed to be in your opening hand and he doesn't update while he's in your deck, I think a change like this, he should also be reduced down to 5. Right now, it makes me want to take Null out of my deck and just do something else with him. I don't know. Really hurts me because I spent money on Null, so hopefully they'll make some change. I know that it says that his functionality with Mr. Negative will be the same, so when it comes to Mr. Negative, since he's not updating in your deck, if you play Mr. Negative, he'll always be a 0 cost. Like, that's the only good part. If he's in your hand, then and the peak shows up, then that'll switch. The good news is, unless you have crazy Yondus that happening, he will reduce probably to less than 6 cost. But I don't know. I still think it should be a 5 cost. With this change, even if they say that it might be temporary or trying to figure it out, I think a change should be done with that. Anyway, Widow's Bite is the last one. This is really just text only. I always understood it as you can't draw cards while Widow's Bite is in your hand. I didn't realize that it said that while this is in your hand, cards can't be drawn. Or cards in your deck can't be drawn. Just reading the developer comments, Widow's Bite inaccurately described its in-game effect, while we considered updating the effect of Widow's Bite to prevent drawing your own cards and effects like cable drawing from your cards. We ultimately decided it was a better experience to just simplify the text and keep the current effect rather than to create these edge cases. Think of if it stayed like that and the effect was what it was worded and Weird World comes out. As long as this card is in your hand, so you're drawing from my deck, but you played Black Widow, that means that cards in my deck can't be drawn. You're drawing from my deck. So as long as I keep Widow's Bite in my hand, you can't get anything. That's messed up. That's wrong. Funny, but very wrong. Okay. So those are the big changes. Really taking a shot at Thanos, really taking a shot at Shuri decks, Red Skull decks. I support most of these changes. I'm not sure about Arrow. I think it's needed. I think the Mystique, Absorbing Man, Taskmaster was not seen coming, but highly needed. I'm not sure about the Morbius and Null. I think Null is almost obsolete right now and should be reduced in cost. Hopefully you guys have some good times. If you guys are commenting on this, let me know how these changes are affecting your decks, what you're looking forward to, if there's anything shouldn't be done. Are you going to keep playing with Thanos decks? Is it worth even playing with Thanos or Shuri and Red Skull? I mean, the good news is that Shuri herself wasn't changed. It was just the cards that she was interacting with. Some of them. Still, a Shuri Captain Marvel is still very good. Shuri Arrow is still very good. So we'll see how it all turns out. All right, guys. Thanks for watching.